Welcome, everybody, to Train Tuesday. I am your host, Jim Wiggin. So glad to have you aboard tonight. Now, if you are watching us on the live stream, I can see you guys there on the side of my screen. Welcome aboard. So glad you could join us. If you are catching us on YouTube, maybe in the future or you're present, depending on when you're watching it, go ahead and like and subscribe if you like the content. We bring you new videos every Tuesday as well, whatever else we can think of. So without further ado, let's see who we've got joining us on the live stream. I see DG Model Works, Donnie, BNSF 9708, Joe, Anthony, Bradley, Sid, Kevin, Jeffrey, and Mark, just to name a few. We're going to be talking vehicles tonight. So yeah, it's Train Tuesday, but kind of a vehicle night. We're going to be talking about two particular Ford trucks and some interesting things that they are would be appropriate for your layout. And these are by the Athearn brand. These are HO Athearn models, really nicely detailed models, and hopefully you can find a place for them on your layout and or modules. So before we get started, let's do one more round of shout outs. I see Eric, Zach, Annette, Richard, Wardell, Jason, Terry, and Cody, just to name a few. So thanks again for joining us. Really looking forward to showing you what we've got planned tonight, and stick around after we talk about the models. I got a few quick updates that I want to let you guys in on that you're definitely going to want to take notice of. So let's get started by first talking about Athearn HO Ford Truck Series. All right, so it is time once again to bring out the rescue trucks. And this is one that we've done before. Obviously, we've been doing this one for a little bit. This is one that we introduced a couple of years back. This is the Detroit Fire Department unit number 8. We did a little bit of variety this time, though. But before I get started, let's go ahead and take a look at these trucks. Now, if you know anything about these Ford Cs, you'll know that they've been around for quite a few years. Now, I can tell you, at least up until a few years ago, my hometown in New Hampshire still had one of these guys. It was a rescue truck. When I was young, it was painted this almost fluorescent yellow-green color. They had since switched it up to a red and black paint scheme. But these things are all over the place. If you're modeling the 1960s and into the 1970s, major cities and metropolises would have had these trucks. As they got older, of course, small towns would grab them too. Since my small town is a small town, they had one of these. They used it extensively from the late 70s into probably just a few years back, if not still there. I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know. It might be gone, might be retired. So if you're modeling any type of city, suburb, anything like that, stay tuned, because we're probably going to have some trucks that will work perfectly for your layout. So without further ado, let's get started on what we're offering. And everything that I'm showing you tonight, you only have a few more days. Friday is just around the corner. You're going to want to place your pre-orders on these vehicles before Friday the 31st. So here's one that would work perfect for you guys that are modeling probably the late 1980s into the 90s. This is more of a smaller area type truck. This is indicative of a paint scheme that you would have seen in the 80s and 90s. We're just calling it County Fire Department. So this would be perfect for you guys that are modeling maybe rural Midwestern areas. Now we're offering these, each that I'm showing you tonight, we're offering these in different numbers. So fire ground support is what this one's called. It's unit number 17. We have the same trim scheme and lettered for number 20. So you can have two without having the same number. Coming up next is the Valley Fire Department. This one is a really cool looking truck. This one here is actually, it reminds me of the one we had in Pennacook. It's similar as far as paint scheme. So this one, again, if you're modeling a small town, you can certainly add this to your fleet, even in modern era. Remember, a lot of the small town fire departments, they're volunteer. And so they're going to buy equipment on the market, definitely in the used market, when you consider how much money fire suppression, fire prevention vehicles are. It's not uncommon for small towns to purchase these. So if you're modeling this time and era, this would probably be the perfect truck for you. Again, this is going to be available in two different numbers. Here we have number CP2. There's also, or I'm sorry, CP1 will also have CP2. Here's another one. This one to me screams, 1980s, 1990s. Um, Kind of has a northeast feel to it for me, anyways. This is Incident Command. You could say that this could be used for anything from maybe a large motor vehicle accident or some type of incident that requires this type of vehicle. Now, these vehicles in the real life, they're used for everything from hazmat to medical services. They're typically one of the first vehicles on the scene of an accident, a fire, or what have you. So these are important vehicles to add to your collection. This one is County Fire Department Incident Command number 1. And of course, we've got matching number 2 for you as well if you want to add this to your fleet. Going in a slightly different direction, we're going to a smaller town SWAT team look here. This is different. They say there's a prototype for everything. I'm sure that as these vehicles went on, some of them were used in this type of capacity. Now, I personally have not seen any like this, but still, it's a cool vehicle to add to your fleet. We're offering 2 of these mobile command units for the SWAT team. We've got this one here, which is Unit 99. It's also available in Unit number 100. Now, you heard me talking about hazmat. Well, these also are available in hazmat. Again, this is a more modern paint scheme. This would be something you would see in the 90s up until present day. The barricade stripes are relatively new for most fire departments. This style of paint scheme really does seem more indicative to the 90s to present day. So this is perfect for you guys, again, that have a smaller town or suburb. Now we're offering this hazmat truck in 2 as well. This is hazmat number 1. We're also offering it in hazmat number 3. And then coming up next, Public Safety Mobile Command Center. This is a cool paint scheme. This is one that I might actually add to my fleet. A little bit different look to it. We're offering this, of course, also in 2 different numbers. This is COM 1. This is also available in COM 2. This is more, this truck was used more of a meeting strategy type place, more than just a first response type vehicle. So you could say this could be used with either your police force or your emergency services. Whichever you choose, it's going to definitely draw some attention when it's on your layout or module. Now, some of the details of these little guys, and I mean, the HO scale, these guys actually have a lot of detail to them. Of course, they're already factory assembled. They've got all kinds of detail parts applied, like those mirrors, those A-frame style mirrors. I'm glad I don't have to put those on. Molded cab interior, separately applied steering wheel. The interior is really nicely done for these small HO scale vehicles. This has got the actual rescue body that the Ford Cs were equipped with during most of their lifespans. Clear window glazing, of course, rubber tires, and of course, it's a Ford, so it is licensed by Ford Motor Company. Anytime we've got something like this, it has to be licensed. So if you've ever seen it on our printed material, you'll see that there's a Ford Motor Corporation stamp of approval on there, meaning that we've paid for that licensing. Now, these are going to sell. Now, keep in mind, this is full-on MSRP, so contact your dealer for your price. But MSRP on these is $37.99. All right, so before going on to the next one, I want to see if you have any questions about the Ford C rescue truck. So I'm going to wander over to the comment section here. Sid is saying West Coast mirrors. That would make sense. I did not know that there was a difference between the mirrors, but there you have it. George is saying, I used to repair those types of trucks. It was fun to flip them cabs, which they had two lever release or locks down on them. Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. I've actually done light work on these in the past. And just like a cab over truck. Now, if you're too young to remember cab over tractors, um, the engine and most of the drivetrain was underneath the cab. And so to work on it, the whole cab would lift over. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, in some ways, it was a lot easier to work on those guys. The ride wasn't as good as a conventional tractor, but working on them was a whole lot easier in some cases. Eric is saying that cab was also badged for Chevrolet International. I've seen them in Oregon used by farmers for hauling grain and produce for the fields. Yeah, that type of cab was really common from the 1950s all the way up until about the 1980s or so. Um, Chrysler, or I should say Dodge, the truck division had something similar. Obviously, GM had something similar. Um, all of them had something that was very similar to that. The cab over style was not an exclusive Ford item, but was actually just an exclusive truck type item. In fact, believe it or not, it actually translated into standard passenger vehicles in the 1960s, where Ford and Dodge especially actually made pickup trucks that were a cab over. Of course, there was also the FC Jeep and yeah, some other ones in there I'm probably forgetting. David Green wants to know, will they have DCC and working lights? No, they will not. They are too small for most decoders that I know of. However, there are a lot of major, well, I shouldn't say major, but there's a lot of industries out there that actually make circuits for these that they can wire these up. They can do it for you, or you can buy kits to make these functional, and they do look pretty cool when you get all the lights on them working. A lot of stuff coming out here tonight. So if I miss your question, I do not mean to ignore you. Just keep in mind there's a lot of questions and comments coming in. Harold's hitting a soft spot in my memory. I remember the show Emergency. That would be a wonderful model to truck for that show. Yeah, Emergency Squad 51. Great show from the 70s. Um, yeah, that was like the original ER and such. Jim, when you say the rescue body is what came with them, whose body style did Athearn pick? Swab, Wagon, Gerstlager? I'm probably butchering that. And others, for example. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was one that was actually chosen out of that group. I'll have to look back on my notes, but we actually came out with that model, I believe, around 2008. So it's actually been around for quite a while. It's been refined since it was originally introduced back then. But yes, that's actually modeled after and what he's referring to is the box end. Ford would just make the chassis and the drivetrain and the cab. Another manufacturer would make the rescue apparatus, the actual box, if you will, that goes on top. Let's see, a couple of requests in there. I'm going to do one more question, and then I'm going to go on to the next truck, which just happens to be a Ford. You guys have to come out with an Econoline van from the 70s. I fully endorse that comment. Please go over to the new and improved Athearn website, and there's a contact us page there. There is an Athearn product suggestion email. Go to that email, put in there, we need an HO scale 1970s Ford Econoline. That would be a great choice. You know, not only could it be a custom truck, but it could also be a maintenance away vehicle, a plumbing truck, Econolines, and the Chevy and Dodge versions, the Dodge Tradesman and the Chevy series, all would be good for our layouts. So go ahead and put that product suggestion over to the Athearn product suggestion email. All right, so let's get on to the next truck, and it's a Ford again. It's the Ford F850. That's one of their mid-class trucks. Now, a lot of you younger guys are probably thinking, wait a minute, that's a pretty good sized truck for Ford. Isn't that a heavy truck? Super 350. Let's go back. This truck is based on a truck that was how it appeared around 68 or so. And to keep in mind, at one time, trucks by Ford was just one of the things they did. They also offered semi trucks up until a few years ago, and they also offered farm machinery and tractors. So, relatively speaking, this was a mid-level truck for Ford at that time. Let's go ahead and show you guys the F850. Now, this is the box truck version, and I've actually got a couple of these from the previous runs. I'm going to show you the Southern Pacific version. Now, in case you missed it, a couple of issues back, Railroad Model Craftsman had a great article about taking the Athearn Ford F850 trucks and kit bashing them. With a little bit of work, you can make these an actual year specific, because very subtle changes were done to these trucks over the years. But these were really common in the late 60s into the early 70s. And as a box truck, a lot of them would last all the way through, in some cases, into the 90s. Not quite as late as like a grain truck would have, but the box trucks would definitely last into the 80s, certainly into the early 90s. Let's go ahead and take a look at this guy, and then I'll show you what we're offering in this run. So again, really nice detail on these, really nice printing. Look at the printing on this. This is an HO scale truck. You've got the Ford logo, the Super Duty logo, really nice detail on the wheels and tires. Of course, the grille. And in this case, you've got the box. So let's see what we're going to be offering this time. Now these, unlike the rescue trucks, we're only offering one number per road. First one up is the Union Pacific. Now this is a really nicely done truck. Painted up in the armor yellow. Really nice truck. You would see these most definitely more along the lines of being used around the stations and stuff. Typically, trucks wouldn't always be so nicely painted, but once in a while, for PR reasons, railroads would do things like this. Maybe it's for some goodwill in the community, doing events, things of that nature. If you don't believe me, just look up Galesburg Railroad Days. Burlington Northern did that for years for the town of Galesburg, and as they became BNSF, they did the same thing. It hasn't only been until just recently a lot of the Class 1 railroads have done public relations stuff like that. All right, so coming up next, Great Northern. Again, this is perfect into the late 1960s. This is right before Burlington Northern. This is right after the Great Northern changed their paint scheme. It was a big move for Great Northern, going to that big sky blue paint scheme, totally different logo. They still kept the goat, but it was a little bit more stylized. And of course, even the font changed. Really bold move for that railroad. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side of the coin you're on, did not last very long. However, these trucks would probably survive into the 70s during the Burlington Northern era. As older as they got, they would probably be reduced more for maintenance and things of that nature. Typically, vehicles are one of the last things that are repainted on a railroad. I can still take it to Galesburg today, and you can probably still find a white Santa Fe pickup truck or a yellow Burlington Northern truck. It's not too uncommon. All right, you Missouri Pacific guys, you're going to want to check this out. This is really cool. Really cool use of the logo. Really nicely done. This could be used, again, late 60s into the 70s. Really neat. Now, if you were modeling the 1980s and you just had to have this truck, a little bit of light weathering probably would do you some good. But really cool truck. Really cool use of the logo. Really love that Jenks blue. Now, I saw some comments before the show started, and there was a couple of folks that said they had to get the Pacemaker New York Central paint scheme. This thing just looks really sharp. Again, this is something that the railroad typically wouldn't put as much effort into. However, there are exceptions. And so this would look great at your station. It would look great somewhere on the layout in a warehouse scene. Any of those locations would be great. But these just look great, especially how they've carried on the look of the railroad onto the truck. Now, for you guys that are like, you know what, those railroad trucks are cool, but I really need something different. I need something from 1970s, 1980s, maybe even 1990s. But I want something that's not a railroad or a mass produced truck. Well, here you go. Here is Irv and Son Moving. Now, you're probably thinking that looks a little familiar. Well, how many times you've been going down the drive and you see a former, let's say, U-Haul truck? It's still orange, white, and aluminum, but it's missing all the U-Haul logos and stuff. Well, we could say this is probably very similar to that. This could have been a former fleet truck for a rental company. It got put onto the auction block, and Irv and his son showed up that day at the auction, placed a bid, and outbid another father and son team out of California and got this for their moving of stuff. You can also kit bash this any way you like, but this would actually fit into the 70s, into the 80s, possibly even into the 90s. Now, if you guys really want to go out there, we've got two versions for you that you're going to want to look at. Here's just a plain Jane fleet truck. There's no markings on it. It's just painted white. Now, remember, in my previous life, I worked at a Ford dealership, and we would actually sell these on the lot. Companies would come in and they'd purchase these, and these were called fleet trucks. Basically, they were bare bone, no frills, painted white, ready to go. Once the customer came to pick up one of these types of trucks, they would quite often take it to a graphics shop and have their graphics applied. And so if you wanted to have something that was really neat, sharp, unique, and something new, well, this would fit more into the late 60s, early 70s. However, if you want something that's a little bit more run down, a little bit more on the used truck market, if you will, these will definitely fit in the late 70s, 80s, possibly into the 90s. Likewise, we're also offering the same truck in yellow. Same thing. This could have been a fleet truck on a trucking company, and it hit the used truck market. And your company that you want to put on there, you can definitely do that. Now, remember, too, there are companies that make decals for different trucking companies and things of that nature. You can also make your own decals and make your own graphics and have those printed on the side. And that's always a lot of fun, especially if you take these to shows on your modules. So there you have it. There's the 8 F50s. And those are available for pre-order until Friday, which is only a few short days away. So if you like what you see there, you're going to want to go ahead and place a pre-order with your dealer. All right, so let's go back a little bit in case there's a question thrown out there while I was switching screens. Harold says Penn Central. Yeah, well, that New York Central one, they probably wouldn't have repainted it pretty quick, so you could probably justify it. Joe Beckman's got an excellent idea. He says these could be used by modern guys for like a truck show or as a special day at a railroad museum. Yeah, you know, the other thing too, Joe, is how many times have we looked at a full-scale railroad magazine and seen staged shots? Say there's a locomotive of a certain era. They'll sometimes stage with antique vehicles. That's definitely another possibility too. So great ideas there. Thanks for sharing that with us. Ramsey is looking at the moving truck. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I like the way that was done. I might have to order that myself. Terry is saying, I remember seeing those Mopac trucks in St. Louis in the 80s. That is amazing. In the 80s, even. Terry says, have to find some U-Haul decals. It could be difficult because of licensing. I know years ago, they weren't too hard to find, but there are some decal manufacturers out there you might want to look up and see if they have something. There's possibility it might be a little bit harder with the licensing going on nowadays. All right. Gary wants to know on the box trucks or the fleet trucks, are the box bodies silver or white? Depends on the era. In the era in which I was selling, which is only short of 5 years ago, modern box trucks come white. However, older trucks back in the 50s, 60s, into the 70s, since they were made of aluminum, and quite often it was some type of corrugated aluminum, which is what is on our model, they were just bare aluminum. They weren't painted. So depending on the era, if you're modeling more modern stuff, the box is a little bit different. They're not corrugated anymore. The structural rigidity is done a little bit differently, and they're usually a gloss white. Let's see. A lot of people wondering, is that the same Irv as Irv Athearn? I believe it is. Sid is extremely excited. He's been bugging me for a while. He's like, any news on Friday's announcement? Yes, the news is there'll be an announcement on Friday. It'll be Friday at 3:30 Central Standard Time, and stick around. I might actually give you some hints as to what's going to be on there. Eric's got an excellent question. Will the F850 be released as a chassis only in the future? I don't know, but you're more than welcome to send that over to the product suggestion email. It's actually a good idea. A lot of guys use these as the basis for some of their builds. I mean, there's a whole special interest group in HO scale and N scale for just vehicles, and a lot of guys will use these as the basis of their some type of work truck that they're working on. So good idea. It's definitely that idea into us. One more question, and I'm going to get on to some news for you. Terry's got a good idea too. He says the white one would look good as a mail truck. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, take a look at some of the decal companies that are out there and just go through and see what they've got for HO scale fleet trucks. It doesn't even have to be a U.S. mail or a standard carrier like that. But remember, some of the truck companies like Yellow Freight, they'll sometimes have these box trucks. Do some digging. You'll be surprised. REA Express, of course, they had some of these. Definitely take a look at that. All right, so got a few things I want to share with you, and then I'm going to let you guys get back to your modeling efforts, whatever's on the workbench or whatever is on the layout. So first of all, this weekend, I'm going to be in Denver, Colorado. In fact, I'm going to be leaving for that here in just a few days. And what's going on out there? Well, let me put that up. We're going to be at the Rocky Mountain Train Show in Denver, Colorado. We're going to be there the weekend of Saturday and Sunday, the 1st and 2nd of April. I can't believe April's already here. This is one of the bigger train shows in the area. So you're going to want to stop by and see this show. I'm going to be there with the booth. I'm going to have some samples to show you guys. Stop by the booth. We're going to be at the booth area D2 at the convention center, or at the Western Exhibition Center. And stop by, talk trains with me. I'd love to talk with you and show you what we've got. We'll have some neat things out there for you to take a look at. And if you happen to be in town or your town in the area, and you want to get train fixed a little bit faster than Saturday night or Saturday morning, you can also stop by a Premier Railroad shop in the area And that's the Rocky Mountain Train Supply, in not too far actually from where the train show is. Friday night, myself and George Bogatak are going to be there having a meet and greet. We're going to have a clinic as well. That's going to be at the store, Rocky Mountain Train Supply. That's Friday, March 31st. So you have a good idea. If you're in the area, come to Rocky Mountain Train Supply, say hi to George, say hi to me, then run over to Scott. He's the guy that runs Rocky Mountain Train Supply, and put in the pre-orders for everything that we've talked about for the month of March. It'll be perfect. You can pre-order those trucks. You can pre-order some of the locomotives that we've talked about this past month, and then stop on back over and see George and I, because we're going to be doing a clinic on taking the Athearn Genesis -9 and fine-tuning it for your preferences for your layout. That means we're going to show you how to fine-tune the sound of all of those different options inside the locomotive, as well as the light intensity for all the different lighting effects. So stop by for that and stick around for, there'll be some refreshments, and you can talk to George and I about this great hobby, and you can put those pre-orders in for the trucks and everything else we've talked about. So one last thing. I said in previous Train Tuesdays, I have been extremely busy since just before Christmas. And a lot of you maybe saw our video yesterday. We had a major announcement yesterday, and that is we unveiled and launched the all-new Athearn.com website. I'm going to go ahead and share that with you now. And here it is. So like I said, we have been working on this, and not just myself, but a team of folks over here at Horizon Hobby have been working on this website almost day and night for 3 months. Basically what we did is we sat down as the Athearn team and we looked at your comments and your suggestions about our old website. Now, when our old website was designed years ago, it was great, but like anything, it started to break down. We're starting to have some problems. And you know what? Honestly, we didn't have enough Bondo to fix that thing. So we took it upon ourselves to sit down and take those comments that you guys provided to us. And we have an absolutely awesome web development team here at Horizon. They took all of those notes, they took all of my chicken scratch, and they turned it into this. And this is a website that's designed for you to find what you're looking for. Let's just take a quick tour real quick. Immediately, you're going to see this great photography. These are items that are in stock at your dealer right now. Now, if you're interested in these, you can definitely take a look at them. In fact, let's take a look at the cabooses. I bet you they're already selling out. Let's see how we're doing. So right away, you're going to see that these aren't in just yet, but that's telling me they're coming soon. So if you're waiting for those CB&Q and Burlington Northern cabooses, it won't be too long. I'm going to scroll down. They go by popularity. Let's go to page 5. Look at this. We do have some in stock. So like I said, when you see that front page and you see the items up there, you're going to see those items are in stock and readily available. So you can either contact your dealer or you can just purchase right through the Athearn website. Let's go back to the homepage real quick. Now, the first time you come to visit Athearn.com, you're going to get a pop-up window, and it's going to say, would you like to subscribe to the Athearn newsletter? You're definitely going to do that, because what we're going to do is we're going to send you all the monthly announcements. Plus, as we go forward, we're going to be doing more with the newsletter. So you'll be hearing more from us. If that's something that sounds like it's of interest to you, go ahead and sign up. You can also log in, set up an account, and you can register your account. We've tried to break things up easy for you. You can shop by scale. You can shop by brand. You can even shop by era. So if you're looking for a 1970s boxcar for the Norfolk and Western, you can easily find it by scale, brand, era, all of that. Each one of these things has a refinement that makes it easier for you to find. Likewise, you can even just go over here to search, and type in the name of your locomotive. So if you've been waiting for SD40T-2s, just search for that. The new search function is light years ahead of the old website, so you're going to find it a lot easier to use. Coming over here, this is our announcements tab. If you go to new announcements, you'll see what's currently on display. This is everything that we've talked about here in March. Now, you know what's going to happen on Friday. This is going to turn into the April announcements. Where will the March announcements go? Well, this is still a work in progress, but they will go into the news archive. Now, we've tried to make this a little bit easier to search. You can search by year. You can see here we've got all these different years. And as this gets refined even more, it'll be a little bit easier to find. Keep in mind, this is a work in progress, but we are trying to archive all of our older announcements because we know a lot of you use that for archival information. Here's another great tool, the shipping schedule. How many times have you been on Facebook and seen one of our posts and say, hey, you know what? When is that locomotive coming out? I pre-ordered that caboose, but when's it going to be here? This is going to make things a lot easier for you. Here we have our pre-orders, and after pre-orders, these are updated based on the ETA that we get from the factory. So here we have due in a year, 6 months, 2 weeks, and shipping now to your dealer. This is going to make things a lot easier for you guys to keep track of things. Of course, you can always search by scale. Here we have everything HO. Here we have everything N scale. Maintenance department. This is Athearn support. You can click on here and get tech support. You can look for product repairs. So if you've got something that needs some attention with one of our techs, you can go ahead and select that, fill out the form, send that piece in for repair. We are constantly going to be updating the Athearn instructions, manuals, and downloads, including things for soundtracks. We've got a video hub. So as soon as this video is over, eventually it's going to end up in the video hub. Video hubs are going to contain all the videos that Athearn has done. And then last but not least, we have parts. If you're looking for parts, this is the link that you're going to want to select. Now here's our Contact Us. Contact Us is going to give you some options as far as what type of contact you want. A little bit different from the original page. It's going to ask for some information, and it's also going to ask what it is you are looking to get some attention for. That gets submitted, and it's a completely different process than what we had before. So it's going to be a lot easier for our guys to keep track of your emails, and they're not going to get lost like they did in the past. Some other features briefly. As we scroll down, you can also search by the brand, as you see here. We also peppered the website with new items to entice you, to let you know that these are in stock right now. Another one that I'm particularly happy about is the Athearn blog. If you want to know what's going on here at Athearn, this is going to be your best bet. We've got one for shows. Here you can see we've got a little write-up on the Amherst show. We've also got what we call At the Workshop. These are articles based on doing things in the workshop. This first one here is about speed matching with Tsunami 2 equipped locomotives. There's also going to be a section that is going to be for you guys. You can actually submit your work that you've done with Athearn models, and we're going to show them in a blog. Now, in order for you to send those to us, you're going to need to go to our Instagram account, and there is a Contact Us Instagram. It's basically sending a message. Send some pictures and send as much information. I actually see those, I'll format them, and I'll actually put them on our Athearn blog. More stuff to entice you. Here again, we have the production schedule. You'll also notice that the product is laid out a little bit different. Here, it'll say pre-order, next shipment. That basically means that's when we're ETA for that particular model is. We've got some here that say July of 2023. In some cases, they'll say in stock. If they are no longer produced, they're totally sold out, they're going to say retired. Want to know what shows are going on in your area? Here's the Athearn event calendar. Here, this talks about the Amherst Railway Show. Here's the Rocky Mountain Train Show that I'll be going to. You can actually go there and get information about that show. So after this, go ahead to our website and check out the Rocky Mountain Train Show. Here's a video hub that I was telling you about earlier, and our social media feed. Down here are some more links. We've tried to make this extremely easy for you guys. Keep in mind there are still some refinements that we're working on, but for the most part, that 3 months worth of work is finally about finished. So check it out when you get a chance, and I will really appreciate it. All right, so next I'm going to take a few questions, and then we're going to go and let you get back to it. Stephen has picked up on one of my quirks. Some of you guys probably noticed the way I say schedule. I've been good. I don't say aluminium as much as I used to, but I blame it on my New England heritage. I was I was around a lot of Queen's English folks, and for me, believe it or not, it's easier for me to say schedule than it is, yeah, whatever you say it, and it just sounds better. Let's see. Joseph's got a good comment. He says, yes, DJ Model Works, big improvement. But what happens if you want your era to end in 75, not 76? I say best to show the build date, new year. We actually thought about doing that, but here's the problem. We started with here and now, and we went back 10 years. Does anybody want to guess how many SKUs we've had in just 10 years of Athearn? Anybody want to take a wild guess? I don't see anybody commenting. 20,000 items. That's just 10 years. Now, keep in mind that Athearn's been in business for 76 years. We really wanted to do that, but in order for us to do that, it would have been a huge process. This at least narrows it down by a 20-year window, and that we figured that was the best compromise for that. Ramsey, you're close. Richard says he loves the new website. Thank you, Richard. Terry wants to know, any plans on coming closer to, I believe he means the South Carolina area. Not this year. Not this year. One of the advantages that the Athearn team has is we have guys that are based in the West Coast. We have guys that are based in the Midwest and, of course, the Northeast. So as time goes on and things are finally going back to normal, the big shows that we attend, they are typically in the Northeast. Of course, Rocky Mountain Train Show is in Denver. The NMRA show can be anywhere. This year it's going to be in Texas. And of course, if Train Fest comes back, I've heard that it's on hiatus again, so we might not be up in Milwaukee in November. So it just depends on where the big shows are. We are experimenting with doing some smaller shows. And the nice thing is where Athearn's got crew from all over the country, that helps us out a little bit. So you never know. We will definitely announce it if we do come to your area. Train Jack, this is a great question. I have wondered why you guys make a caboose with DCC and sound. Do I have mine here? I just picked mine up. I haven't played with it yet. Great question. If you look at the layout behind me, it's a point-to-point switching layout. In this instance, and since it's HO, I'm actually going to be modeling a little bit outside of my normal comfort zone. I'm going to be modeling the modern era. Now, yes, cabooses are no longer used in the modern era. However, they are used as shoving platforms. And in my case, there are no runaround tracks. There's not enough room. It's just spurs. In order for my locomotive to bring the train of goods to the different industries that I'll eventually have on this layout, the shoving platform or caboose will be leading. Now, why do we have sound on there? Well, the lights should be pretty obvious. But as far as the sound, that gives you another level of operations that you wouldn't have with a static, or not a static, but a non-sound caboose. So in a situation like that, especially with a shoving platform, a lot of those will have lights, and a lot of those are going to have some type of warning system because, again, the locomotive's way on the other side of the train. The caboose is the first thing coming down the line, and it's going to be crossing intersections and things of that nature. It needs a warning device. So we're going to some of our cabooses have horns, so they could be used as a shoving platform. And also, if you're modeling the earlier area, you're going to get cool sounds like the clickety clacks, things of that nature. It just brings another realm of realism to the model. Now we realize that everybody wants sound on their caboose, so the Genesis cabooses are available with sound and light or just lights. All right. Southern wants to know, do we have any plans on making a 73 to 87 Chevy GMC pickups? Got to have my square body pickups on their way from the plant. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And actually, that is probably one of the most requested GM platforms that we get. Again, it's down to licensing, but if we could get the licensing for those trucks, that would open the world for maintenance away vehicles, all the way down to just your standard pickup truck and Suburbia. That would be a great model. GM produced thousands, millions, I don't know how many of those trucks, and they still survive today because they were a great work truck. Alpaca wants to know, any ideas when the Surfliners could start getting shipped out? Well, like I've been saying, and I know you guys are getting tired of hearing it, we've had some delays, unfortunately. We don't have a firm date yet, but we're hoping for the end of the third quarter, maybe the beginning of the fourth quarter. We are watching the ETAs on that. And don't forget, you can go to our website, our new website, and those ETAs will be updated a little bit easier than the old website. Okay, one or two more questions. I'm going to let you get back to it. David Green with an interesting question. Where do you see the hobby going in the next 10 years? Well, a lot of those guys that we're seeing that are the younger guys that are coming into the mix, they're going to be the next generation of model railroaders. The previous generation that was used to kit building everything, they're slowly going to, unfortunately, pass away. The younger guys that are used to more technology, more DCC technology, using Wi-Fi, we're going to probably see more prototype operations that are more common. I think we're also going to see more layouts like the kind you see behind me. I think it's certainly something to be said that the current economic climate mixed with the current generation struggles, we're going to see folks not have the time and resources for the giant empires that we used to see in the magazines years ago. I think we're going to see more smaller layouts, and that's going to force all of us to really model the smaller portions of the layout. So really get into the nth degree of detailing. So in the next 10 years, I think we're going to see more prototype operations, definitely more technology in the DCC world. Don't forget, Soundtrax has got that new Blue Nami. That's opened the door on a lot of modelers. And you know what? We're just going to see more detail for one thing. All right. Terry P42s, we're hoping September. All right, one more question, and then I will let you guys out. Looks like the last question of the evening is Harold wants to know international trucks. Well, again, it depends on licensing. It's right up there with the GM trucks. Trust me, if licensing wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, and of course cost wasn't an issue, I could think of probably 2 books worth of vehicles I'd like to see on my own layout in both HO and N scale. But it pretty much does come down to licensing. Now, trust me, with this big hurdle of the website being done, we've got some more exciting things coming in the next few months for you at Athearn. We are working on some things that you guys have been asking for. And actually, we're going to be talking about a lot of those things in the upcoming weeks. So stay tuned to that. Watch the social media. We'll be posting some of the places and opportunities that we'll be providing to you guys. But with that, I want to let you guys go. It's been a little bit longer night, but I wanted to give you a rundown on that website. We're kind of proud of it. Until next time, don't forget, Friday, 3:30 Central, we have the new announcements. And I'll even give you a hint. A lot of you guys have been asking for Undeck. We've been listening. So until I see you on Friday, I want to wish you all a great evening. Be happy, be healthy, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens. Good night, everyone.